Hi, my name is Madeline Gregory, and today I will be discussing a learning disability known as dyslexia. Um, this disorder is neurobiological in origin, and what I mean when I say neurobiological is that it's a brain-based disorder. Specific genes account for about 80% of the differences found in the brains of these students. It's characterized by difficulty with accurate and or fluent word recognition and by poor spelling and decoding abilities. When I say decoding abilities, I'm talking about when you have poor decoding abilities, you have a difficulty accurately reading out loud unknown words and like new words, so it makes the learning process a lot harder. When I say that they have poor reading, comprehension, which is common in more moderate and severe cases. The poor decoding and limited fluency can kind of interfere with reading comprehension, especially since if they're having a lot more trouble, then it's going to be really hard for them to comprehend exactly what they're reading. They're just trying to get to the next word, so they don't actually understand what they're reading. Poor fluency is slow, inaccurate, or labored oral reading. Poor spelling, usually they have difficulty with learning to spell or with spelling even the most basic words that most kids do not have issues with spelling. Dyslexia affects about 20% of the population, and dyslexia represents between 80 and 90% of all those who identify as being diagnosed with a learning disability. It affects every race, gender, and socioeconomic group. It doesn't affect a gender or a race more than it affects another. There is treatment for this. Typically, when you're screened and then diagnosed as dyslexic, you are put into this rigorous, depending on whether you were diagnosed as mild, moderate, or severe, intervention process. In this process, you learn how to, I would define it as training your brain to use the parts of your brains that are used for reading and writing and spelling and all that. You're training that part of your brain to be used a little bit more through practice, because you're using those parts of your brain a lot more in these intervention processes. Accommodations, like you get more time on test or to complete assignments. You can request a lighter workload. You can avoid taking too many courses at one time, especially taking too many courses at one time where there's a whole lot of reading involved in each class. There are technologies that can accommodate and make modifications to your learning experience. I would say technologies like speech to text and text to speech help a lot for studying and note taking and for writing assignments too. But I would say early screening and early diagnosis is the most effective way to really get to the root of the problem. Your future for your academic journey is a lot easier when the issues have been nipped right in the bud. There are obviously learning challenges that come with this. It is a learning disability. These students typically do academically fall behind their classmates, and in turn, sometimes that can cause anxiety, especially socially, and it can cause depression. It can cause a child to feel like they're dumb because they have a learning disability, which we know that isn't true. They just need different kinds of help. It takes more than, there's more challenges that come with it than just learning challenges. There are teaching challenges. I believe a lot of the teaching challenges come from misconceptions and myths surrounding dyslexia, like a child will never be able to read properly if they're diagnosed with dyslexia. They're not smart if they are diagnosed with dyslexia, or they read words or write letters backwards, and and things like that. Also, I feel like teachers aren't really trained to notice the immediate signs, and I think part of that is reason because their classes are too big, in my opinion. I feel like if we had smaller classes and like teacher assistants in every class, things would be a lot easier to recognize. They would be a lot easier to notice a struggling student. I think that all teachers should be required to also know how to provide intervention in the classroom, because even if they're receiving intervention outside the classroom, they also are going to need it inside the classroom. This belief also comes from personal experience. I was diagnosed as dyslexic when I was 7 years old, and it came from a teacher at a private school where the classes were a lot smaller, noticing that I was struggling. Once I was diagnosed, I went on to have about 5 years, twice a week, of a intervention tutoring sessions. I caught up with my classmates and I no longer struggled. I did very well. School has been pretty easy. I learned how to study. I learned how to, my reading comprehension got a lot better. I just believe that a lot of our population has dyslexia, but a lot of people don't know much about dyslexia. And I think there needs to be a little bit more clarification for not just teachers and educators and other professionals, but for everyone around the entire learning disability.